Hi, welcome to my presentation. Today we're going to be talking trash. My name is Shanna Thompson, and the title of my presentation is Trash Talk, an in-depth look at food waste in America. An estimated 40% of food produced in this country is never consumed. Food waste hurts people and our planet. We can do something about it right now. The culprits. So who was wasting all this food? 12% of food is from institutional and industrial waste, 11% from grocery stores, 33% from restaurants, and a whopping 44% is food that we throw away in our homes. On farms, 12% of produce never actually even leaves the farm. It's just left there to rot. And the main reason for this is that there is no market for imperfection. We want perfect food. The bananas in this photograph were actually thrown away. This is just a small portion of one day's harvest that is thrown away because the bananas were too curvy, not curvy enough, they're too thick or they're too thin. And it happens all the time with every kind of produce. Private households are the largest source of food waste in America. An estimated 44% of all waste is from private households. That means 25% of the food we buy, we're just throwing away. I couldn't believe it either. When I first read these numbers, I decided to track it myself. Just last month alone, I threw away 13 pounds of produce, about $50 worth of food. And this picture is just 2 weeks of produce, 6.3 pounds. Why are we so wasteful in our homes? There's this thing called the psychology of abundance. So Americans, it's not enough to have just enough. We want more than enough. There's also laziness. We're all been guilty of it at least once, right? We have a house full of groceries and we just don't feel like cooking. So we run out to the store and either buy more convenient food or we go to fast food. We just don't feel like cooking. Out of sight, out of mind mentality. We're all guilty of this. We don't think about where this food is going. We just think it's biodegradable. Or overbuying and underplanning. Those are huge contributors to household food waste. Grocery stores. Grocery stores account for about 10 to 15% of all food waste that leaves the manufacturer. Most of this is imperfect produce and packaged foods that have neared the best by date. I took these pictures at the commissary where I shop. These apples were rejected by the person in front of me for the small bruises. Bananas, she was actually picking them off the whole bunches because these single bananas were just too bruised. I actually bought these fruit and took it home because I knew they were going to end up in the trash. Why are we so wasteful in our grocery stores? One of the biggest reasons is the great myth of sell-by and best if used by dates. The FDA only regulates baby formula and some baby foods. The sell-by dates and the best by dates are arbitrary. They are not put there by the government. They're not put there for our food safety. They are put there to protect they're put there by the manufacturers to protect their image. So they put the dates there to say, this is the date that we think you will have the best experience with our food. It's not about safety. Nothing magic happens overnight when that date passes. It isn't automatically spoiled. You gotta smell your food. You gotta look at your food. Taste it if you need to. 9 times out of 10, it's still good. Also, again, that need for perfection is huge in this country. Another thing is, the food is not donated. Why throw it away when we can donate it? I know what you're all thinking. It's illegal to donate food. More on that in a second. Restaurants. 33% of food waste in this country is carried out by restaurants. Roughly 10% of all pre-prepared food in full-service restaurants is discarded. That number is as high as 15% in buffet restaurants like Golden Corral. And this, I'm not talking about plate remains. I'm talking about food that's just thrown away from the kitchen and from buffets. Like Golden Corral, they can only have their fried foods on display for 30 minutes, and then it has to be thrown away. Their policy is not to give it away to their employees. They have to throw it away. There's huge portions at restaurants. A lot of people don't take their food home. Or they take it home, they forget about it, they don't eat it, it gets thrown away. Also, restaurants, they don't donate their unused food because of the myth of lawsuits that never happened and can't happen. What was that, you say? It's not illegal to donate food? No, it's not against the law. In 1996, the federal law passed the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. This act protects all establishments, restaurants, and grocery stores from lawsuits. They cannot be sued by anyone if they get sick from food that's donated. It's actually never happened. There is not one documented case where someone, an establishment, or a person was sued by someone they donated food to. Again, it is not illegal to donate food anywhere in the United States. So what kind of impacts does food waste have on our environment? Food is the largest component in landfills. It's taken up 21% of all waste. That means it's the third largest contributor to global warming due to all the methane produced from it decomposing with no air. That's enormous. The third largest contributor. Think about that for a second. And there's impact on natural resources. The impact on water. So 80% of all fresh water in the U.S. is used for food production. That's a lot of water. And 40% of that water is used to grow food that never gets eaten. That's a lot of water wasted. Land use waste, 50% of land is used for food production. 20% of that land is used to grow food that we never consume. This burger, don't even pay attention to the bread or the produce. Just the patty, that one patty. So all of the water it takes to grow all the grain to feed and water that cow, for this one burger is equivalent to us taking a 90-minute shower. One burger, one 90-minute shower. Yeah, it is crazy, shower singer dude. It's nuts. So next is our economic impacts. Per household, we waste about $1,200 to $1,600 per year on average. Think about that for a second. In 10 years, you could have up to $16,000 in your bank account if you would stop throwing away food. Grocery stores lose about $15 billion in costs in produce alone. What does that mean for us, you ask? That raises our food costs. Food costs have gone up 42% in the last 10 years. Also take into account the rising cost of farming. Because of all their loss, that comes back to us in food costs. So it's a huge impact. Impacts. Social impacts. So this is where we really need to close this gap. Because there are 50.1 million Americans that are food insecure. That's 1 out of 6 of Americans that are food insecure at any given time. So that amounts to about 160 trillion calories of food waste every year. So if we recover 25% of the food waste, we could provide 3 meals a day to 43 million people. So if we recovered 35% of the food waste, we would not have one single person hungry in this country, which is exactly the way it should be. So what do we do about it? Awareness and action. The government's actually taking action. For the first time ever, the EPA, along with the USDA, in 2015, set its first ever national food loss and waste goal. They aim to cut food loss by 50% by 2030. They did a huge call to action for major businesses. This included food recovery challenges and the U.S. food waste challenges. One of the companies to get on board, Starbucks. I was so happy to see this sign when I was there a couple weeks ago. Starbucks recently joined forces with Feeding America in food recovery efforts. They now donate all prepackaged foods to charity once shelf life has been exhausted. That's huge. So Feeding America, Food Recovery Network, and 58 other nonprofit organizations like this exist in the United States. Their goal is to send trucks to these businesses, to grocery stores, and to restaurants, gather their unused food, and put it into the doors and into the mouths of hungry people at shelters and food banks. Now, this is the food recovery hierarchy. The EPA put this out a few years ago. Starting at the top, we're going to talk about all the things that we should do first. And then it goes down from there. So source reduction, right? I mean, that seems obvious. We want to not produce as much food as we make. Supply and demand is how the economy works. They think that we need to see all this overabundance of food in grocery stores, but we really don't. Secondly is feed hungry people. That's what all these trucks are doing with like Feeding America. They're getting all this food into shelters. Secondly, if you can't do that for whatever reason, at least feed it to animals. There's a guy in Vegas who feeds all of the pigs on his multi-million-dollar farm for free because he goes to the strip and goes to all the buffets, and he has a cooperation with them, and they donate their food scraps. All the leftover food is put into this big vat, boiled down, and fed to the pigs. Yeah, it looks really gross when you see it in documentaries, but it works. Industrial uses is next. And then composting. And that's an interesting one because before I did this research, I thought, well, you're not really wasting food if you're composting it. At least you're putting it back into growing more food. But actually, only 1% of the energy is actually recuperated from food that is composted. So we're only using 1% of those nutrients. That's why it's so low on this food recovery hierarchy. And last, of course, I don't think this should be gray. I really think it should be red. Landfill and incineration. This is absolutely the last resort to disposal. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. Dumpster diving vigilantes. This is huge for awareness. There are two things that you should go watch. Well, as soon as finals are over. Just Eat It by Grant Baldwin is an incredible documentary. For 6 months, Grant and his wife challenged themselves to only eat food that was discarded. This is him sitting in front of a dumpster that is literally filled with a ton of hummus. And you think, oh, it must have gone bad, or maybe it was recalled. No, no such thing. It was just overproduced. They had no buyer, so instead of donating it, they threw it away. Food Waste Fiasco is another great project. Rob Greenfield is huge in the dumpster diving community. All of this food that you say laid out was recovered from a few dumpsters in one city. What he does is he takes his bicycle, he does cross-country tours, and he stopped in each town and he dumpster dove. And then he said, hey, I'm going to be at this park. Come hear me talk, become aware of this cause, and then take home some food for your family. All of this food was recovered and none of it was wasted. But what can I do, right? That's what we think. We have this thing about learned helplessness. It's a real thing and we need to get over it. We are not helpless. Everyone can make a difference. So the first thing you can do is buy less than perfect produce. Ask for it in your store. It's called culled produce. C-U-L-L-E-D, culled. Ask for it. They're going to throw it away. Buy that produce, take it home. If it's bananas, you can freeze them like I do for smoothies. Meal planning. Plan your meals for 3 days. Go to the store with a list. Buy the meals for 3 days and cook those meals. Buying less. We don't need to buy carts of food. We can buy just the meals for those 3 days and snacks, and that's it. Raise awareness. Hey, be a dumpster diver. I'm doing it this summer because this project has really ignited a flame in me. I'm going to do it as an experiment and see what I come up with. Educate yourself about sell-by dates. Educate everybody else. Talk to as many people you know. These are not real things. They're arbitrary and should be ignored in most cases. Buy food close to sell-by dates in reduced to clear areas. My grocery store has a reduced dairy section, a reduced meat section, and my commissary has a reduced produce section. I love that, and there should be more of it. Request it from your store. Lastly, grow your own food. This is huge. Get your family involved. Educate your kids. Save future generations. The more you put into growing your food and putting food on your table, the less like you are to waste it. We can make a difference. I totally believe it. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. And my references. Thanks, guys.